Hi there. Welcome to another brief clip from one section of the sense-making course here in Living Resilience. These are some pretty heavy hitters this time around. This particular section involves some of the most established and deep thinkers of the entire sense-making community, if there is such a thing these days. Of course, Daniel Schmachtenberger, who has been, really a cornerstone personality in this conversation since the time when Rebel Wisdom a few years ago really set up a whole series of experts, various kinds of thought leaders, to lead us in this conversation of what is it to make sense of these insane times. And of course, Daniel Schmachtenberger has been instrumental in that chapter and many others since then. He's just on a nonstop speakers tour of getting his particular interpretation of what's going on and what we might do about it. Then, of course, there's Nate Hagens, with whom Daniel did I don't know, 7 or 8 different long episodes between an hour and a half and 3 hours for each episode over a year. And I point toward that in a couple of the other sense-making episodes that include either Daniel or Nate. So you can find that, and you can find that up on your own in their YouTube channel. I'm thinking primarily of Nate Hagens because he's got his his YouTube channel is where you'll find the chronology of their talks. But it's most important right now to mention Nora Bateson, who is a third in their conversation. I think this is the first time the three of them have done a conversation together. They're all three, again, just masterful in their own way of bringing out new context for us to explore in what looks to be an impossible situation. And this is a very short excerpt from a 2.5-hour talk. There will be a link to the full talk, so you won't miss a thing. If you don't want to, you can click on that link and just be ready for that 2.5 hour. It's really quite a gorgeous gathering, part of a long conference in Sweden, in which a progressive investment corporation sponsors a number of remarkable thought leaders to come and speak, including Kate Rayworth and just a whole string of remarkable people. This is a quieter after conference gathering. You can just feel it, right away. What you'll see if you do the longer clip is Daniel is not feeling well that night, so he actually slows down to where most of us, myself included, can actually follow his remarkable thinking. And he and Nora start out this 2.5-hour conversation. They've already covered a lot of ground, and what you're going to see in this, I think it's roughly 12 minutes, is they're recapping for us just a little bit about what this challenging time is looking like. And Daniel talks about this entity called Moloch. It's a mythical character that represents the amalgam of shadow, the amalgam of all of the unsavory, unhealthy, life negating aspects of what we're grappling with now globally. They start there. So we're well into the conversation. They're just recapping. Hey, we would want to just recap what we're up against. So they do that for a couple of minutes, and you'll hear that. Then they invite Nate Hagens in, And Nate just takes a moment to get to know the crowd a little bit and speak a little bit about what he's up to and what they're up to. He's only going to speak for a very few minutes before we're going to stop this clip, and we'll finish it up and move into something else. And it's during Nate's talk that I really wanted us to be listening close for how does this conversation, this unique, extraordinary conversation between these extraordinary people, thinking about levels of engagement with this global predicament that most of us will never get next to. Certainly, I'll just speak for myself. I just won't be involved with the conversations at that level. If I am, it'll be at a kind of a marginal level. It's just an extraordinarily complex and deep challenge for anyone who's engaged with it. But there's something that Nate says. Actually, Nora points toward it, and so does Daniel as they're wrapping up. So listen for it. Listen to what their suggestions are for how we might comport ourselves, as Dahr Jamail might say, how we might comport ourselves in the face of this extraordinary time, these extraordinary influences that we somehow must face. And they're very human, and they're very much embodied, and they've slowed down, and they're spoken in just calm tones of this is what would serve us most. I wanted to bring this to you because so often these conversations can be too complex. They can be too daunting. They can be really, I just want to throw it all out and give up when they get too complex, when the conversations get too wrapped into themselves, so that there seems to be no way in. There's no oxygen left. With these three, there's a lot of oxygen. They're really bringing a way for us to be human no matter what we're facing. That's why I wanted to bring this clip to you. So I hope you find it useful as a part of the Living Resilience sense-making course, the one section that this is included in. And we're also going to be including it in what's called the community of practice, the people who really want to take on this body of work and really integrate it into their lives so they can be more and more of service to the people they love as the stakes grow steeper over time, as the stressors grow over time. And again, what really warms my heart about this clip is that all three of them are really committed to just being humans. We're all just doing the best we can in front of ungodly challenges and stressors in our global environment, and those stressors promise to keep growing. So I hope you find some solace. I hope you find some possibility in this brief clip. And if you're engaged, if you have the space, try and watch the whole thing. It puts it into even more context, and it's quite extraordinary. There will be more in this section that are, elements that are related. There'll be more clips that I excerpt from this longer talk. And I think you're going to find some of the other kind of parallel conversations and clips useful as well. So thank you for participating in this sense-making course with Living Resilience. I just really appreciate whatever you're setting aside in your life. We've all got full plates these days. So for you to set aside a considerable amount of time to consider these clips, especially the longer ones, thank you. Really looking forward to meeting each person who's participating in any of our online courses, hopefully in one of the community gatherings, be it on the first or the third Saturday of a given month, or in a safe circle conversation, or in one of the chat spaces that's built into the Living Resilience community space, the online community space. That's where you're watching this, unless you're watching this in the Poetry of Predicament podcast, which all the information to contact that community space is down below in the show notes for this particular clip. Thank you again. I hope to see you again, or meet you sometime soon in the Living Resilience community space. Thank you.
If you think about, I don't know if everybody has read Meditations on Moloch or heard me talk about it, but if you think about $100 trillion a day economy, where all of that money is a decentralized incentive system, incentivizing all of the humans to figure out new ways to make money and or do more of the existing ways, which means that it's incentivizing search algorithms and optimization algorithms. It's running on 8 billion people, but it's also running all 8 billion people. So as powerful as parallel computational processing is, and why the cloud became so much better than supercomputers, being able to run a lot of parallel process, this is parallel process against things that are already general intelligent, on top of general intelligences. And then all the computational intelligence and narrow AIs are being built into this system. And this system has an imperative, right? It has a built-in growth imperative that involves all countries and all technologies. And anyone who does the bidding of that system well gets more power within it. And anyone who goes against that system is also going against those who are doing well in it, and they'll get downregulated. And that thing totally is what's causing climate change. Nobody wants climate change, but that thing is causing it. And that thing is driving AI arms races and is causing species extinction and boiling the oceans. That thing is on a suicidal path. That thing does have to get killed. And killed or converted. If we want a habitable biosphere and responsible use of tech to be a possibility.
And the trick is, it is actually functioning like an ecology.
Yep.
And that's,
which means super resilient.
It's super resilient. It's responsive, and that our bodies are actually dependent upon it right now. So we have an ecology of crises. And that's a really big problem, because it's not like a machine. If you lift up the hood of your truck, you can pull out parts and replace them. This is not that. It's compensatory. It's interdependent. It's patterning and repatterning, and it's moving. It's
and super intelligent.
Yeah. So I think for me, one of the things that I think is important, what's important, is not to underestimate what it takes to actually be in this moment and to participate in the process of shifting or killing it. Don't lose morale, because we need you to keep playing music, keep falling in love, keep loving your babies, keep taking care of each other. But at the same time, don't be thinking that this is simply a matter of making a new model. And that the trickery of what it is that we're working with here is significant. It's significant. And in some ways, we don't understand it any more than we really understand what makes a forest make life. There are ways in which these things are coming together that are beyond our perception. So be careful, right? Be careful. But be rigorous. And stay in love. Because if you fall out of love with it, you can, with life, that's not a good place to be. The reason that the meadow keeps being a meadow is because life. The reason for doing this is not because anything, just life. And that's enough. That's everything, actually. Yeah. Come on. Yeah, let's bring Nate on.
Thank you. Is this on? Is this on? Thank you. Good to see everyone. Just real quickly, how many have followed my work or my podcast just to get a sense? Oh my gosh. So in her typical Nora way, I said, how long would you like me to speak? And she says, between 1 and 20 minutes. It'll be closer to 1, and then we can take a break and then reconvene and do some questions. Daniel, don't take this the wrong way, but you should get sick more often. I'm not sick. I feel pretty good. However, Daniel has recently recommended some multivitamins to me, and there's a daytime one and a nighttime one, and this afternoon I took the nighttime one, so you know of what I refer. I feel fine, but I'm a little sleepy. So I took a few notes. I think that we do know the future in some ways. We don't know what it's going to look like, but there are some biophysical constraints. Recently in my work, I talk about the 4 horsemen of the 2020s, which are, number 1, our financial claims relative to our underlying biophysical reality. And instead of tightening our belt and using less, we're doubling down and creating debt at a very fast rate. And that inevitably has to reconnect with the biophysical underpinnings of our situation, which are energy, materials, and ecology. The second category is we are rapidly changing our relationship with what is the wealth and productivity that has got us to this point. And the historical story has been about money and technology, and the reality is energy, materials, and ecology. And with the Russia-Ukraine situation, our geopolitical arrangement, and Daniel talked about all the wars in the past being started by false flags and the very sociopathic, powerful people. So there is a phase shift from a unipolar to a multipolar world. The third risk is the 6-continent supply chain and the complexity of our grocery stores and our systems and our medical supplies, because it's been based on this part of the carbon pulse, where we've outsourced everything into this really complex situation. And then the last piece is the social contract, how we get along with our fellow citizens within and between countries. And so we don't know what's going to happen specifically, but I think now there are no longer any non-radical paths ahead of us in the next decade. And so we might not know what's going to happen and the scale of what's going to happen, but I think getting to Nora's point about nth order agency, there are some no regret strategies that exist, and the one staring us in the face is what's here this evening, is we have to start building social capital and social relationships, even if we're not solving problems, even if we're not doing things directly to prepare, because we can't really prepare other than to maybe imagine what life would be like with 30% less income or 30% less energy, and then act accordingly. But what we can do is build relationships ahead of time. I've been referring to this as rocks in the river, is if there are no psychologically, physically, emotionally, structurally full stack humans in a community when these events come and the water races faster, everything's going to tumble down. And if there are these bigger rocks that act as anchors, they help others in the community. And if there's enough rocks, they actually redirect the water as it comes through. We're working on really complicated, scary issues. Daniel's mentioned AI and biology. There's Russia not too far from here, and my country is doing just sociopathic things, not the whole country, but certain people in the country. And it can become overwhelming. I've found that the single biggest antidote for me is three things, but one in particular. One is time with my ducks and my dogs and just being in the moment with animals and my friends. Two is spending time in nature. And three, and this hit home 2 nights ago, Daniel and 6 or 7 of our close friends working on this went out for Thai food in Stockholm. By the way, so far I love Stockholm. The weather is freaking awesome. But we had dinner and we were talking about these issues, and I just felt this levity of spirit. Despite the topics that we were talking about, I was with 7 other humans who deeply care about this moment in time, and that we were helping each other. We had each other's backs. We were all working on the most meaningful thing that we could be working on. And that's worth more than money or anything. It's working with other humans on a collective path. So I have more to say, but I think I'll just stop there, and we'll take a break and then have some questions with the 3 of us. But thank you all for being here, and I have that feeling again tonight.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us in another episode of The Poetry of Predicament. This podcast is produced by Dean Walker and the Living Resilience Alliance. Living Resilience exists to offer transformative support and resources to the Collapse-Aware and Collapse-Acceptant communities around the world. Our sole purpose is to curate and offer coaching, support groups, courses, and events that assist people in expanding their core skills, competencies, and capacities for facing a troubled, predicament-laden, yet still ineffably miraculous world.